All right.
What's up? Oh my God. Oh, oh.
Boom, 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 boom. Oh,
All right,
we've
we're
been
good.
on the whole time.
That's how it works.
All right.
So now you gotta
So, yeah, now I got to mute this.
mute and keep going. Don't look at it.
Spread Love Podcast.
Yeah, baby.
Finally got it
We
going.
got it going. All here. Oh my gosh. Huntsville, Alabama.
Huntsville.
So hold up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Doug Smith.
The Doug
The
Smith.
Doug Smith.
You know,
Sound Cell.
we're supposed to be looking at
The
the camera.
famous.
Huh?
We're gonna look at the camera.
Look wherever you want to look. So,
No, we're talking to the people.
Hey,
People over there.
the Doug Smith.
Hey, people up there.
oh,
Wow.
Jason says we're all good.
Oh,
Yes.
awesome.
So,
All right.
man,
Yeah,
Doug.
But just explain why we're saying that Jason says we're all good. So for you guys who are just now tuning in, or you might have already tuned in, we didn't know that we were in with you.
Right.
We were having some technical difficulties, all sorted out now. We're about to have a great discussion with Doug Smith, the owner of Sound Cell Studios
Yeah, baby.
in Huntsville, Alabama.
Doug,
The original.
The one and only.
Doug,
The very
how long has Sound Cell been here?
1980.
Woo.
2 years
That's
before
a
my
magical
birth.
year.
1980. That's when
Oh, wait a
we
minute.
started.
That's literally 2
That's
years before
when
my
we
birth.
2 years before Christian
Born
was
in 82.
born.
Yeah, that's that
Oh
makes
my
me feel old.
Oh, sorry. My apologies.
Oh my
Doug is older
God.
than KD.
Wow. That's exactly.
So, Doug, what do you remember about the very first time that we came? Because we have our own story and our own recollection about coming to Sound Cell, and we'll get to that. But I want to hear from you what it was like.
Man, very first time, blown away. Just, that was my initial impression. Your uncle, right, Mark?
Yep.
That
Yeah.
had come in for reunion with his group and had rented the studio for a couple hours on a Sunday morning or something. And
Wait, which uncle?
Adrian.
Adrian
Okay,
Watkins.
of course.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Adrian Watkins. He knew. He was just making sure y'all knew.
And they got, halfway through a song or two and just went, man, we're too out of practice. We haven't sung together in such a long time. Let's not waste this money. I'm going to give it to my nephew. He's got a group that's coming up.
Wow. The love from the beginning.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
And so then you guys came in and I just had not heard anything like it.
So you said blown away. You said you hadn't heard anything like it before. Had you had any other Oakwood acts been to the studio at that point?
Yeah, one of my early recollections is the Aeolians with Alma Blackman. And to this day, I can recall, back then we were just getting started. We didn't have all the air conditioning down that we could hold 100 people in here. So it was a hot summer day. Everybody was getting tired. And Alma had everybody stand on their toes and raise their arms up because they were singing flat. And I looked out from the control room with all these sweaty people with their arms up, and I went, "What a great underarm deodorant!"
Wow.
So there was a stream of people. I have some old documentation that when I was like. I started here with a partner, Hershey Reeves, and I bought Hershey out about in '83, and I had this kind of like pros and cons list of why I would want to continue on with the recording studio, and Oakwood College was on the pro list.
Wow.
Because it had become apparent to me in the early days just how stellar the people that were coming out of Oakwood, and it wasn't just the vocals, but the character. It's just great working with you guys. So
That's good vision, man.
Absolutely.
That's good vision.
Absolutely.
So for you, once we came in and we started coming in more consistently, and then Henry Mosley brought us in to do the Firecracker record.
Right.
Well, how did that feel to you? How many full albums had you done to that point here at Soundcell? You had Pierce Pettis and a few people before us, right?
Right,
Mhm.
right. And there had been a lot of boutique records, this group, whether it was this, Southern gospel group or this local rock and roll band, that kind of thing. So there were a lot of, I probably had, 20 to 50 albums that had been.
Oh, we were just another album. Okay. Yeah, see, I was trying to go somewhere with that.
Well, you were definitely the only really a cappella group. There had been maybe some, like I said, Southern gospel quartets or something that had done a couple of things, but that was, the I'll Fly Away, and that's all I wanted to do after I finished the recording was fly away.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So when we started recording, the first time I recorded, unfortunately wasn't here with you, but in Nashville, who was the first one to come up with the idea of actually laying the arrangement down on the track that we sung to? Was that Merv or was that
the piano track?
That was the two of us. And what we did was lay down originally just the key. Just the key. Let's say Mary Don't You Weep, there was no whole thing going on. There was only the key to a specific
rhythm?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And most of the
not even the melody, just the actual
not
key.
even the melody. That's all.
Wow.
Well, sometimes there was a bass line or something that you might put in with the bass.
It grew to that.
Yeah, right.
It grew to that.
But like a chord or just to keep things on pitch.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, Doug, do you remember the first two songs that we did on that Sunday morning? Before you answer the question, though, what the fans need to know is that originally the only people in this room that would have been there would have been Mark and I.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So between the three of us, do we remember those first two songs that we sang on that Sunday morning?
Would it have been
Fly Away.
Mary?
No.
Not Mary.
We weren't even.
Come Unto Me? No. I don't remember the particular songs. Do you?
I think I've always remembered one, and I want to say one of them was Come Unto Me.
Yeah, Come Unto
And
Me.
in fact, it was Come Unto Me in the original key. I don't think we ever sang it in that key again after that Sunday morning.
Yeah, I kind of remember Come Unto Me too. So
I know it was one slow one and one.
I thought it was it something within me?
It might have been something.
yeah.
I don't remember it being something within me because I don't remember doing a lead.
What I want to know is, did you guys know from that beginning that you wanted everybody had their own track, 6 mics, 6 tracks, and stacking and all of that?
No.
No.
Or was it
No.
one? Okay.
I was an 8-track studio at that time, so
Yeah.
there was no
Yeah.
Yes, let's talk about the studio.
Wow.
yeah.
Talk about from the original, what was the studio and what has it grown to?
Well, back then we had 2 8-track machines, and if we wanted to go beyond 8 tracks, we had to bounce those tracks to another machine and then record on those other tracks. And then Hershey and I developed this, what we used to call the Gonzo mixdown overdub method. And one of us would sit with headphones with our fingers on the flanges of the reels, and we would keep the machines in sync
Wow.
by using our fingers on the reels.
What?
And
By slowing down just to make sure they're on this.
we would have the same exact track on both, like track number 8 on both machines. And so when you get those things in perfect sync, you would have this swishing, phasing sound of the
like
track.
a flanging sound.
A flanger. That's how it came up. That's what the sound, that's why it's called flange, because you would put your fingers on the flange of the reels, and you would hear drift to the right, and you would then, put your finger on that reel and slow it down and it'd drift back to the other side. So while one guy is mixing and changing things, because there was no automation or anything, it's like bring this up, mute this, do this. The other guy's sitting there going, "Okay, I'm keeping it in sync here." It's kind of rocking back and forth.
Wow.
Can you just, I'm
And
sorry.
I would go to Nashville and play things for people, and they go, "How do you do that on an 8-track?"
Wow, man.
As I recall, we did that first on the 2-inch.
Right.
The 2-inch, and I remember we did 2 passes of it. and we were trying to lock ourselves, and it wasn't working too well. So back in the day, because I think it was like you just do it all the way through.
Yeah.
There was no stopping.
No.
No punching or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you go back and explain to people what the razor blade edit?
Yeah, he taught
Come on,
me.
man. That he taught me too, man.
You would.
Wait. Hold on. You're going too fast.
Okay.
I got to give the man the due.
Uh-huh.
This is the guy that literally taught me how a studio works. He taught me the signal path.
Signal path, yeah.
He taught me how to take care of the chords,
Nice.
how to set up
Patch bay,
microphones,
the patch bay, all of that.
Wow.
He taught me just how the recording actually works. Of course, cutting the tape, and how to mix the whole nine. This is the guy that really showed me those ropes. Right here. I was hired by him.
Wow.
Wow.
That's funny.
A house.
So-
I don't know if it's engineer. It was help.
House help.
It was
Well,
help to take care of. But that's exactly what I needed to learn the whole art of
Yeah.
singing.
Wow.
Were you?
Brother man.
Mervin worked here. You
I
worked
worked
here.
here. Joey,
It
did
was-
you work here?
For a second.
Yeah.
That was like you guys needed money and you were eager to learn and it didn't pay much for sure.
That is for sure.
But he had a hook because they loved it.
There, it was so well worth it.
But the whole editing process with razor blades and you would have to rock the reels back and forth across the head with that till you found the sound, and then you'd mark it with a grease pencil, and you'd have to go through a whole process of keeping the splicing block clear with the alcohol swabs
Yep.
and all that, and your hands clean, and then you'd overlay, slice with a razor blade,
Yep.
put the tape down.
Because there was a groove there
Yeah.
that went underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And you put the razor blade in there, boom, through that groove, line them up. I'm sorry, I just jumped.
No, I get it.
He's
Yeah.
just-
You can probably do it in your sleep still.
Yeah, I can't. When digital came in and editing like that fell to the wayside, that was not anything I missed at all.
That's right.
Used to get really tired, and we'd be splicing, sitting up against the machine, and you just pull it off and cut, and the razor would go. Oh God, I gotta get a new pair of pants now because I just cut my pants wide open or whatever.
Now, how many times did you mess the edit up?
That is something that I never could afford to do.
Yeah, I was about to say.
That was something that I made everybody who learned the skill practice on garbage tape until I was absolutely
Oh,
confident
man.
because
I love that.
when you had to do things in the analog world, there was no undo.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
undo made everybody lazy and gave you the benefit of the doubt on all kinds of things. But you had also a time between the playback head and the record head that gave you about a 64th of a second to punch in or punch out accurately.
Hmm.
So when you were at the end of somebody's sustained guitar, ready for the downbeat on the other thing, you had to be lightning fast to hit that at exactly the right moment, or you'd have a gap in the tape that would not go away.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And so when you had those punches, you would be like, "Oh man, sweating bullets!" The producer, everybody's there. That nobody's going to take it over again. We're just fixing this one thing. And after time, you got confidence where it's like, I can hit this bullseye on a regular basis. And
I got my punching confidence right here in this studio before.
So, Doug, you started out 8-track. Then you went to 12 or 16? You went to 12.
no, there wasn't a 12 track.
There wasn't a 12.
We went to a 16 2-inch,
16.
and got that from the guitar player Chet Atkins. I bought it off of Chet Atkins.
Excuse me.
And then I added a 24 track, and I had the 24 track and the 16 track and slaved those together. And then MIDI came around. That's another story that came up the other day. Somebody was here, and we were talking because we had such advanced technology in Huntsville when MIDI first started happening. You guys remember Avery Burdett?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, Avery, who later became like, keyboard specialist for Yamaha
Sure.
and, all that stuff. Avery was, he was my house keyboard player, so to speak, and his Prophet and his Moog and all these early synths were here. And he got with some technology people in town, and we developed triggers for MIDI to be added to these vintage synthesizers.
Wow.
So, and we were like the first people to be doing that kind of thing. And it so happened that Skip Scarborough came over one day.
Whoa.
That's right.
And Skip came in, and he was supposed to be doing a session with somebody, and we'd been on this project for a couple of days, and all the keyboards had been set up for something else I was doing, and I was kind of bragging like, Skip, you should check this out. Look at what we've done. And I put up the keyboards for him, and he went, oh, whoa, hey, and so can you call the artist and tell him I can't work today? And in front of me, he wrote, "Giving you the best that I got."
Wow.
Inspired by that keyboard sound. And that afternoon, he's like, Skip was not much of a vocalist, if you guys knew that. He was sort of like...
Oh, yeah, we remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
And neither was the guy that he was working on.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, so I said, hey, I know some guys that can help you with some background vocals. And I still have that recording of you all Giving You the Best That I Got demo.
Really?
Yes.
So the only other person I knew who had it was Kelly O'Neill,
Uh-huh.
who actually, I believe, was the lead vocalist on it. And we sang background, remember?
Yep.
And I remember Kelly said he had...
I thought his wife was the...
No,
Kelly
sang on it.
Wow.
And Kelly had a cassette of it. And so that's the only other person I knew who had it. So, man, I wish we could play that right now.
But we do need to hear, maybe not on this particular.
Oh, we need to hear
We'll
that
insert it
tonight.
here.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
we
is
will.
That is crazy.
That is awesome. Because the way I remember it, and I told this story recently on Facebook, is that Skip was working on this project and had done 4 or 5 songs and ended up being done with what he was charged to work on, but still had either time left or whatever. And that's when we ended up recording that song. But we sang background on the other songs as well.
As I recall, it was because I remember him asking me to call the artist, and we were scheduled to do lead vocals or something. He had already done a lot of the work and that kind of thing. And, the artist needed time to rehearse the material that he was supposed to be coming in and performing. And so it was one of those kind of like a delay of game was not a big issue, and it wasn't on anybody's dime.
What did he hear that made him go, wow? Was it layered keyboards?
Yeah.
Or just, okay.
Yeah, it was just this, Prophet and DX7 and
Yeah.
whatnot that had been, we had already been playing with it the night before when he wasn't around, and it just happened to be up, and I thought, he'd be interested to hear this.
That's a great rock and roll Hall of Fame story.
It's like those stories I heard on that Bee Gees
Yeah.
documentary the other
Right,
day.
right.
Where they're talking about how they did the bass line to
The
Staying
drum-
Alive or
yeah,
whatever?
The drums was
and they
alive.
looped it,
Yeah.
but they looped it,
It was the
in
drums.
real time.
Yeah, it was the drums,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
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 Yep.
The drum track.
And 2 guys working it kind of like what you're describing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was like the 80-8 that we recorded on the 8-track was the same one that they did. The Sweet Dreams are made of these, and
Oh, wow.
and they had to do their background vocals live with the mix down
Oh, wow.
because they didn't have a track for background vocals.
So wait a minute, the Eurythmics recorded here as well?
No, not here. They
Okay.
recorded on the same machine.
Okay. So
And so back then, everybody was experimenting with ways to get more out of what we had and pushing for more tracks. And there were 24 tracks available at that time, but the Eurythmics and other people who were coming up, we didn't have access to that. It was still expensive and hard to get into. So you're just trying to play the game with and weight things as much as you can. So that brings me to my most. Do you guys remember Elephant Scary? The night we did Elephant Scary in
What is that?
That's the line in
Oh, and David and Goliath.
David and Goliath.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So do you have any recollection of that? Because that's infamous for me.
No.
Okay, so
It scared you?
we're doing David and
It
Goliath.
scared him.
It's my all-time record. I spent 8 hours.
By the way, we just lost Carmen the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh man. We spent 8 hours on 8 seconds. That one line.
Sounds like
That's
us.
about right.
Without a break.
Mhm.
In that chair. We would, because we only had so many tracks,
Mm.
and there's 3 or 4 of you in the booth crammed in, and you're getting tired, and somebody can't, somebody's falling out and laying on the floor, and I'll sing his part, and we won't mention any names, right? And we get it, like, well, okay, the blend is great, everything's pitched and all this kind of stuff, and we're stacking it, and now it's the triple, and somebody goes, oh, what if we added some vibrato in this part, That'd be way cool. Erase it all, start over again.
Wow.
And then we do that, and then it was like, okay, now we've done that for an hour and a half and gotten it right, and somebody says, what about a swell here,
You guys are killing me.
You guys gotta practice and think of these things before you go to the stage.
I don't remember any of that. We don't remember any of that.
I don't remember any of that.
But it's funny that he remembers all of that. Like, oh my God, these guys.
It was just like, you guys were being born at that point in terms of your creative genius, understanding what was possible, and to see you work to perfect it and sweat bullets to make it happen, it was like, that made me realize what great artist you were and what the possibilities were for you, right? And why I started going to the bat all the time. And it was that song that I played for Mac McAnally, and Mac played it for Jim Ed,
So can we go back to the
story?
Yeah, because we
Wow.
have our version of the story, but we only know what we know.
Right.
So I didn't know till recently that you actually gave it to him. Do you know if Mac intended to hand it to Jim Ed knowing that we were having that showcase?
Oh, I made the call that night.
Wow.
That is
Yeah,
awesome.
that's a very, sitting in the office there. I didn't have. It was a turning point for me because I had a bunch of time and energy invested in you guys and had not made any money, and you all called up and said, we're going to have this showcase or whatever tomorrow, and so I sat there and I thought, well, what do I do to help these guys? Because you had just gotten in with Gail at that point. And everything was kind of moving to where you were going to get into that whole pitch stage. And for a long time, I had whenever Mac would come over, I would play him different things, and he always loved to hear stuff from you guys. And I had asked for copies, and I had given him copies. And so that night, I called Mac, and it was like one of these things where do I make this call because this would be like letting everything go, and I don't, I'm not a part of it or whatever, and I did, and it was just like, whatever comes of this is the right thing to do. Make this call, get this guy in. I remember sitting there with the phone going, should I or shouldn't I? And it was like, yeah, you should.
Wow.
And I called Mac and said, Mac, they're going to be doing this showcase tomorrow. He said, well, actually, I'm working with Jim Ed. I'll try to get him over. And I came up with Avery for the showcase.
Wow.
And I was in the audience, and when you guys sang, and Jim Ed was sitting there, and nobody knew who Jim Ed was.
Right.
Right.
Sure did.
I knew he was there. And
We had no clue who this guy was.
And I was just, the spirit just got me. I was moved to tears. I couldn't talk to you guys, so I left the room because I was just overcome. I knew that it had happened.
Wow.
It was like, that things had been set in motion. And so I walked out and I stood outside with Avery, and he was like, what's the matter with you? And I said, it's done. These guys are on their way.
Wow.
That's amazing because, okay, so now on
Yes, sir.
behalf of
So we'll
Yeah.
fill in the 360.
all right. So of course, Mark, Merv, and Claude were tied in both ways.
Right.
Right.
So Dave, myself, and Sid.
Well, before you go there,
Okay.
so the showcase wasn't a
Even
live
for you
showcase.
guys. No.
Yeah.
Right.
It was
It
a
was special
special
blend,
blend
yeah.
showcase.
Yeah, I know.
And we opened
Right.
for a special
So
blend.
that's what I was getting ready to
Yeah.
say.
So the pressure was on a special blend.
Right.
So we
So
were like, hungry.
right.
But
Exactly.
it was
So we walked
also
out.
Gail's husband. Gail's husband was part of the showcase.
He probably was. He
Yeah.
probably
I
opened.
think he did
Yeah.
open the
He
whole
probably
thing.
opened.
He was the main
He
act.
sure did.
wow.
He wasn't
Yeah.
the main act.
What?
He was a
I
act.
don't remember singing at all.
I don't either. That's how good you guys were.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah, because he was doing his thing.
Whether
Right.
he emceed or sang or whatever, he had to have been a part
Yeah.
of it some kind of way.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, continue. Wow.
So at that showcase, all we knew was that the people who were supposed to be there were not there. And kind of word got out as we were performing that pretty much this is a swing and a miss.
Right.
But we were doing our best. It's the same kind of thing. Well, let's just see what can happen. We're just going for it, going for it, going for it. Dave, I, and Cedric walked out, and we were kind of like,
Oh, well, it's a failure. Because there were people there at first.
yeah,
Right.
Then they kind of got glimpses of us,
Yeah.
and they started leaving. We
Right.
hadn't even sung yet.
right.
Right.
So we were laughing like, oh man, this is a bust. This is
Yeah,
not gonna work.
yeah. And I was like, man, it's
Good
too
thing it's
bad
not our
nobody's
showcase.
too bad nobody's ever going to see this. This is great.
Yeah.
The Special Blend was killing.
Yes.
And we were like, they're about to launch, and this is it. So it's funny to hear you were overcome with knowing it's about to happen, and we were like, oh well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knowing it's about to happen for the other group.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And actually being okay with it. It was
Yeah.
like, they were ready.
Back to school.
Yeah, there was absolutely no doubt in my mind. You know, like I said, Jim Ed hung around and put up chairs and introduced himself.
Really?
Yeah. Jim Ed was like taken, and it was just.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he said.
You all in the office the next day, weren't
We
you?
were
Literally.
we knew
Yeah.
nothing.
Right.
At there, we were actually disappointed because literally when you see people walking
Yeah.
out, you thinking,
Yeah.
you didn't do anything. You didn't
Right.
catch
Right.
anybody.
Right.
Right.
So
I drove up to
We
DC
had-
that night and went to go back to Howard.
no clue.
And
Yeah.
Jim Ed literally said, I'm Jim Ed Norman. I'm the vice president of Warner Brothers Nashville, the country music division. I love your music, and I have no idea what I would do with it, but I want to sign you.
Right.
And we were like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Now that was a great day.
So, we've never really had a sit down with Mac, like ever,
I've never met
about
him.
any of this. I've met him before, but we've never really, talked about any of this. How, he was a part of this from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That's
It's amazing, man. It's amazing. And for those of us who were, Vinny and I were just coming into the group, so all of the history that you've been talking about at the studio, we weren't part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
these stories are like legends for us as well, man. Legendary stories.
I remember coming up, matter of fact, when we first got going back to that same David and Goliath story, I remember Dave and I driving up for the weekend. We had stuff to do in here in Huntsville. We would make a beeline up there and be in the lobby in the lounge area of the studio waiting for the three of them to get done so we could get in there.
Right. Right.
And we'd be sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And finally they walk out and it's like 7 o'clock at night, the end of the night, we're like, oh well, back to school.
Yeah, the only memory that I can really say about Sound Cell was more like PTSD for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess now that you tell me that you had trained Mark just came in here and acted like it was his studio. He was just coming in and hooking stuff up, and I'm like, oh my God, Mark can just do anything. He said, now sit down over there, get this mic. So we had an oscilloscope.
This is
And Mark had
torture chamber.
Mark had one microphone, I had another microphone, and Mark was intimidating me by saying, you must keep the needle right in the middle. And so I'm singing, it's like coming off, I can't do it. And Mark would be like, I'm like, no.
I can't do it, man.
so. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, man.
Mark, how many people did you do that to?
Just
Just
me.
him.
Just that's what I was going to say, but I wasn't sure.
He did it just me.
No.
He made me. We
That's
stayed there
right.
forever because he made me stay till I could do it.
Come on, this is a Quiet Chang story, man. Only those people that got to a certain level were tested on the oscilloscope.
Pitch on, pitch
Yes.
off.
I was teaching you just what it takes to make yourself be right. You think you're right, but you're
I
not.
see that.
See, now he's just ungrateful. That's what he is.
I am grateful. I have to.
He's been telling this story.
What I
like he's
didn't
been
realize is that I should have been more grateful to Doug.
Because Doug had the oscilloscope.
Who had created the beast.
And I was
Mr.
actually in the
Architect.
other room controlling yourself.
He'll never get the deal right.
That is funny. So let me ask you this, Doug. The story that you just told us and struggling with that, do I or don't I make this call? You make the call, we take off, and we're not recording at Sound Cell anymore. And we haven't really talked to you in many years.
Uh-huh.
So I don't mind opening this up to see how you felt about that and how you continue to feel about that, if you want to talk about it.
Well, I remember that my whole thing was I thought that I would get at least the re-recording budget, to re-record the record. And everybody by that point had moved to Nashville, and it was going to be easier to do it in Nashville. And you had a digital studio. Of course, my studio was not, anywhere up to the par with the top studios in Nashville kind of thing. But I still felt, I remember being in Colorado. I think I'd gone out there with my kids for a vacation thing or something, a wedding or something, and I got the call, and I was pretty disappointed. It was a thing for me to see some money coming in, which hadn't come in a while, and it was a sweet and thing to hear you guys making it, and a sad thing feeling a little bit left out of the process, and it didn't. I really had that conversation with myself that night with the phone. So there wasn't any regret, I'd done the wrong thing or I messed up or any of that kind of stuff. I'd known I'd done the right thing, and that I would eventually be, rewarded for it. And I'll tell you another story that happened to me not too many years later, but it was a couple of years later, and the record had been out. And I was out in Los Angeles at some sort of, cocktail function, meet and greet thing. Mm-hmm. And somebody came up to me and said, somebody told me you were involved with Take Six. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I want to tell you that record saved my life. I was,
Wow.
I was going through divorce. I was depressed. I was suicidal. And I listened to that record every day.
Wow.
Wow.
And that just was like, I did something.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't record that record.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just a part of getting that record to that point.
Yeah.
Right.
And later, I had this guy, Patrick. I can't remember Patrick's last name. He was an intern here from Oakwood. Had a twin brother.
Patrick.
Graham.
Graham.
Yes, Patrick Graham.
Yeah.
So Patrick Graham is sweeping the halls, and he's staring at the gold record on the wall. And I went up to Patrick and I said, "You want one of those, don't you?" And he said, "Oh, more than anything. That's what I got. That's what I want."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, Patrick, let me tell you a story." I said, "This is just sort of a meaningless award to me. Doesn't mean as much as what I'm about to tell you." And I told him that story of the guy coming up to me and saying the record saved his life. I said, "That beats anything that I hang on the wall."
Right.
So, and so then Patrick went on to sweep, right? And 20 years later, Patrick shows up here at my door, and he says he remembers this night, and he remembers that talk, and it changed his whole attitude. He's become a music minister. He's got a bunch of kids that he does a summer camp thing. You guys kept up with him?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and I'm going, phew. I just said a few words to you that night, but that was also paying it forward.
Change the whole trajectory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the things that when you say where you get hurt when you don't have some money in the bank or this or that. I mean, pissed at you when you walked off with the car that I had co-signed the car note on, and the bank calls me up and says, "You got to come up with $3,000 tomorrow." I'm like, "Claude, get my car back here."
Wow.
But
Well, to me, that really says that you just never know who God places in your life and for what reason.
exactly.
And so the main thing, even though I wasn't there for those early years, we owe you a great deal of gratitude.
Absolutely.
The world.
Which is one of the reasons why I
Yeah.
wanted to do this.
Yeah, man.
You
That
know?
is amazing.
Man, you do
Amazing.
know that, I mean, you had to know that when I went back to Florida after I got in trouble at Oakwood, and I guess my mom came here to do something, and that's when you all had that conversation or whatever where you were like, have him come back up here to intern.
Yeah. I was like, do not let Claude stay in Florida. Get him back up here.
Oh, man.
I'll give him a job. Whatever. This group
Because I was going to
can't
go to
stop.
Full Sail.
Right.
And you were like, no,
No.
come back to Huntsville.
Yeah, that's even
That's
another
huge,
piece
man.
because we didn't think that the group was going to be able to go on because when Claude wasn't there, we tried other singers.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't working. We reconfigured. It
The
just wasn't
oscilloscope was
working.
blowing people up.
Every time somebody got
Mark had gotten out of hand.
like he's pulling people off the street. Oscilloscope.
Not the oscilloscope. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, we were all in the right place for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And I was just, just like you guys. We all just stepped to what we felt and heard and believed, and you all made all kinds of sacrifices to do what you did, and I was just part of the team.
We're grateful, man. Thank
Yeah,
you.
man.
Sure.
Thank you.
Dude,
Bless
you
you.
were the original team.
Mm-hmm.
Original team. So I know I talk about you a lot when it comes to the early years and learning and experimenting and stuff. Because when I worked here, Doug, you were a taskmaster. Well, what Doug did was I was interning, but there were actual sessions that were coming through here. Claude, you do have oh God, paying sessions. And Doug would very graciously come and help me out or whatever, but I was sweating bullets every day.
This is wax on, wax off, man.
Man.
Have
It was
it right
good.
here.
But here's the other thing. I can't remember who else worked for you. And now I'm about to tell on you.
Jim
Yep.
Phillips,
Jim Phillips.
who called me today out of the blue.
Are you serious?
Wow.
I swear to God, I hadn't heard from him in years, and he's like, he wanted me to give him a reference for somebody renting a building or something.
Oh my God.
Look how you guys just picked up on old times,
the-
just finishing each other's sentences and everything.
The crazy thing about this, Doug, is I just said you were a taskmaster, but you used to go in like crazy on him, and you never screamed at me. Even if you wanted to, Doug never screamed at me. But he would be screaming his fool head off. And Jim would be like, oh my God. They'd go into the back room and I could hear them. And I'd be like, it's actually my fault what just happened.
He's been carrying that all these years.
I've learned to mellow.
Sorry, Jim.
Wow.
I've learned to mellow that part over the years. I don't scream near as much. Do I, Tully?
No, sir.
Let me tell you what's cool for me, because I'm just sitting as a bystander. When you were we were in the break room
Mhm.
and you were talking about how the deal came for you to own this entire block and all this other kind of stuff, I mean, and just and then hearing this story, what it says to me is we have to be conscious of the fact that the reward doesn't come a lot of times from the place that you would expect it to come from.
Exactly.
The sacrifice that you made, that moment that you had having the conversation with the phone was your moment. That, in my opinion, just listening from the outside in, that was the moment where you proved yourself and you sowed that seed into this group that went on to do great things for the kingdom of God, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's his responsibility to pay you back,
Mm.
not take 6.
And how cool was
And
it?
how cool is
Yeah.
it? So now, from that sacrifice, and again, like you said, it was tough, not getting what you thought was what was rightfully yours, or even a budget to come back to re-record. Budget to re-record. I'm going to give you the entire block. So for me,
Right.
that's cool. That it's just cool to hear that story, because there's a lot of people that all of us sometimes that we think it might be insignificant, or maybe it is significant. We have this war with ourselves. It's like, man, I don't want to make this phone call, but I know it's the right thing to do, and I'm gonna do it. And then maybe, hey, and then of course, as natural humans, as men, we're like, all right, cool, I'm gonna make this phone call. Maybe something's gonna come back. Hey, man,
Right.
And it's like, hello. But God saw that, and
Beauty for ashes.
Absolutely, beauty for ashes, man. And I think that it's really cool that you did that, and the testimony that we're hearing this on
40
this
years
property
later, still.
that
yeah.
you own. So it's pretty cool.
But wait,
That's-
and it's even. I'm glad that you brought that up, Katie, because how you know that it was God is that not just did you get the reward of all the success and that you've had in Huntsville with everything that you've done here with Sound Cell and the whole block, but when you told us a story about coming to California,
Mhm.
and randomly you meet a person that says, "Hey, man,
Yeah.
I heard you were involved with Take 6.
Yeah.
Based on what you did, my life was saved."
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Just random.
Well,
Man.
to me, it wasn't random.
Yeah.
It was like,
there you go.
I'm getting a message.
Right.
I love that.
This
man.
was you do the right thing, and
And just in this room, there were 6 families and that have been blessed.
At
You
least.
know,
Mhm.
many of us are grandfathers now. I
Right.
mean, it's just all
Yeah.
of this is stuff that you helped happen, man.
feel good about that.
Dude, we feel good about being able to talk with you. You had mentioned on the email that I sent you that we hadn't been in this room since 1989.
I'm not really sure what the date was when you did that concert, but I have this, that long, very 80s picture of all you guys in your little sharp outfits, or
Sharp outfits.
the orange.
The
Yeah.
faves.
Dated outfits.
Yeah, and that was after the concert at the Civic Center, and I threw a party here for you guys or something. You all came by that night and signed that
Yes.
poster.
Yeah.
And that was, I
That's
think, the
right.
last time you were in this building.
Yeah, I know. It's been forever. Since
Wow.
So whether that was 88 or
Didn't your brother
89 or...
You talking
Yeah,
about nostalgia.
that was Brian's concert.
Yeah,
Yeah, it sure was.
89 because I graduated that year. Yeah,
So it was
So
89.
89.
yeah.
That
Gotcha.
is amazing.
Yeah.
So I have to say this. I know Mark feels the same way because we were talking about it earlier. As soon as we walked in here, man, you talk about the memories, because so much of this still looks the same.
Mhm.
You know, that back room there, oh my gosh, that's where Jim was getting all that butter.
The very first time I saw a drum machine was on that shelf right there.
Right?
And I remember the first time that I met you.
Mhm.
You were sitting at the board engineering something. You're twisting knobs. I'm like, look at this dude. I learned how to do that.
The many
And my
hours-
first possession was here.
The many hours we spent in that room right there, because that's where we recorded.
Yeah.
Not out here, but over there.
The 6 of you got in that little booth?
In that little
Oh, yeah.
room.
Why
Oh, yeah.
not out here?
Not sure.
Because that's where the Neumann was always set up.
Well, yeah.
Right?
But he could have set the Norman
But he
up
never
out
took
here.
it out of there,
But
I
he
don't
never
think.
did. There was
No,
a reason.
you guys,
He wanted
y'all,
us to sweat.
we did different things. We split you up in rooms, and we tried different things. But at the end of the day, that's where the magic happened,
Yeah.
and that's where you just kept
In
going
that
back
room.
for.
Yeah.
You should put a plaque in there, the Take 6 booth.
Oh my God.
Come on.
Now, do you
Doug.
still have that same Neumann?
Yeah, that's sitting in
The
that booth.
87, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that something?
that's it in the booth there.
That is
So that
amazing.
Very mic.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a new mic 40 years ago.
No, so it's probably about 80 years old now or something.
Wow.
That is crazy, Doug.
Yeah, there's some things around here about as old as me or older.
Oh, I know. I see.
Well, Doug, we appreciate you, man. And we appreciate the walk down memory lane, the nostalgia, the grace that you've shown through the years. Not just to Take Six, but from the stories that you tell to everybody that's crossed your path.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate you, man. We love you. We thank you for all that you poured into us. And
we honor you.
yes,
We do.
Well, thank you.
We do.
And I got to say, as far as this Take Six Spread Love podcast that we've been doing, this conversation is right up there with the very top, man. This is amazing
For us.
sitting here with you,
It's a gift for
talking
us.
and listening to you. Man, and sharing with you. This,
Well, let's not wait another 30 years, huh?
Exactly.
let's
right.
not.
That's right.
Exactly.
Let's not.
man.
So with that being said, absolutely. If you like what you're hearing and seeing and whatnot, press like, press subscribe on the Take Six official YouTube page. And Doug, how can people find you if they want to come and do a session?
Soundcell.com.
Soundcell.com. All right. Huntsville, Alabama. This is the place. Launched many a career.
Mm-hmm.
The
That's-
magic.
Doug Jensen Smith.
That's right.
Thanks for being with us, y'all. Thank you so much.
Peace.
Let me see.